Team Canada announces their coaching staff for the upcoming Olympics, and it does not include Jared Bednar. The disrespect continues, and we're going to talk about it on an episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. Thank you for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. Always appreciate it. If you want to get in on the conversation, then join our subtext. Link is in the show notes below. Chat with myself one-on-one. Get your opinion, everything Avalanche related. Share it on this very podcast, which we will do throughout the episode. We'll be talking about, the Jared Bednar not being on the coaching staff. And the network's doing a Mount Rushmore thing over on the NFL side of things. And I know we've done that before, but I will ask a very specific question when it comes to the Avs Mount Rushmore. If you're looking over on YouTube, you already know the question. So we'll kind of go down that road in a little bit. But yes, where we're going to start is with Team Canada announcing their coaches for the upcoming Olympics, and they're the same as the Four Nations. And I think for the Four Nations, it didn't really make that much that big of a deal about it that Jared Bednar wasn't a part of that, just because that was new. It wasn't anything that we'd ever done before. It's not the Olympics, and while it was a raving success, it wasn't anything like because Bednar wasn't a part of that, wasn't looking at it like, okay, hey, enjoy the time off. It was more of, this is the Olympics, and Team Canada went with the same coaching staff. I don't know if they're feeling like, hey, it worked for the Four Nations, let's do it again for the Olympics. Okay. But I kind of feel like it's just because it's different. The Olympics have a different appeal to it, different allure to it. Maybe they would have changed things up, and they chose not to. So just to refresh your memory, John Cooper is your head coach, and your assistants are Bruce Cassidy, Pete DeBoer, Rick Tocchet, and Misha Donskoff. And if that name doesn't sound familiar, no, it doesn't to me. He was an assistant for Dallas and recently took a job, left Dallas and recently took a job with Team Canada as an assistant. What was it? He's an assistant. So I had it up here. Vice President of Hockey Operation and Men's National Team Coach. So he's in with Team Canada. And he was already assistant coach for the Four Nations. And like I said, they just kept him on. Look, I'm not trying to knock anybody that is there. Like they're all deserved in their own way. Yes, even Pete DeBoer, jokingly, but this is just becoming there's something we need some sort of investigation to go on here, because it just seems like Jared Bednar is getting passed over on way too many things, and I don't understand why. What did he do? Does he have dirt on somebody, or is he not in the group chat with the coaches of Canada or something? Like I cannot for the life of me figure out why he continues to get passed over and not recognized for the brilliance and excellence that he has brought to the Colorado Avalanche. And I trust me, this isn't something I was like counting the days now, like, oh, I can't wait to see what the coaching staff is. I didn't know when this was coming out. I don't think most people did. But when it came out and I saw his name not on there again, I just feel like something is there's something going on where he's just not in with the cool crowd of Team Canada coaches. And John Cooper continues to be, and John Cooper is a phenomenal coach, but he is like the Connor McDavid of coaches. Like no matter what he does, even if he has an off season, he's still considered the greatest on the planet. And that's true for Connor McDavid. It's true for John Cooper. So Cooper's just going to be, as long as he wants it, he's going to be the head coach of everything for the next 20 years. And that's fine. Like, again, he's deserving of it. But I have a comment from Adam over on Subtext, and what he says is exactly what went through my mind when I saw this. So this is what Adam says. So I'm curious if John Cooper gets a say in who he wants behind the bench with him. If that's the case, maybe Cooper is a little salty after the Avs beat them in the 2022 Stanley Cup. Otherwise, I would have to say it's simply a popularity contest, because I have no idea how you put DeBoer in there when he's never won anything, and last time I checked, is currently unemployed. Thank you, Adam. Very well said. And it's kind of, can you get a job in this, being unemployed in the NHL? Of course you can, but it just looks weird, does it not? I mean, he gets fired, and now he's coaching Team Canada, or assistant coaching Team Canada. I don't know about the popularity contest thing. Maybe with the exception of Donskov, like, because he's not popular. Cassidy is, Tocchet is, and maybe that's it. Maybe there is some popularity to this, but I just continue to be amazed at how Jared Bednar continues to get passed over on things. And there's going to be guys that he coaches on this team, most likely 3 of them, with Taves, Makar, and MacKinnon. So wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you want the guy who coaches those guys most of the time, at least part of I know it's only 3 players on a 20 team or 20 plus team roster. But I don't know. I continue to be baffled by this. Let's see, because there's other comments on here. Not the judge Napolitano says, let's see, the only way it makes sense is to see it from the point of view of consistency, in that they consistently overlook his success. Lisa says the lack of respect is maddening. Hoffkorn says, from an outsider, I think one could look at the Avs' recent playoff performances without context. Yeah. I mean, you have, let me see. All right. So yeah, Cooper's won, Cassidy won, has won. If you're going off of that, I don't want to say you should solely go off of that. Go off of, if you've won Stanley Cups or not. Clearly they're not. DeBoer's in there. And you have a guy nobody's really ever heard of in there, which I'm okay with. Believe it or not, I'm okay with that. I'm not saying you have to have household names for all of them. I kind of like the fact that they have a no-name guy in there, because he can bring an aspect that they don't have in those other guys. But should Bednar be in replace of one of those other guys? I hate saying that too, because again, I don't want to take away from the guys that are there. They're all well-known coaches, have won in this league. It's less about Bednar replacing one of those guys, and why isn't just Bednar in there to begin with? And why doesn't he get the recognition that those guys are getting? It just continues to not make sense for me. Joe says, I'm not sure the world could handle Bednar, Cooper, and DeBoer on a single staff. That might be true too. I know there's no hatred between DeBoer and Bednar. I think that's more of a fanfare than anything else. I think they would get along just fine. And I don't know how much Cooper has a say in this. I'm sure he does. If he's the head coach, I'm sure he's talking to whoever is at Team Canada, and they're going through this together. But I don't think Cooper is singularly making the decisions here. And I really hope he's not doing it out of spite over Jared Bednar and being the guy that beat him in the Stanley Cup Finals. And if that's the case, wouldn't you want that guy? Wouldn't you want, if you're the head coach of Team Canada, wouldn't you put your pride aside if this is the case? And I don't think it's the case. It's more of a fun talking point than anything else. Wouldn't you put that aside and say, hey, let me bring the one guy who beat me, the one guy who knows how to beat me and how I want to coach this team, who got better of me? Why not bring that guy in? That would make the most sense. But it continues to not make sense. And it kind of leads me into where I want to go next. The Athletic had a poll up. This came out, I think, earlier this month. I didn't really get to it. And I'm not going to go over everything, but it's going to lead into more talk on Jared Bednar and then lead into talk on the Avalanche in general and how people are viewing the Avs. And are we in for just a season for the Colorado Avalanche where, sure, they'll be good, but are they going to be exceptional? And are we in for just, if you're looking on YouTube, are we just in for like an average Avalanche season? So we'll talk about that coming up next. Let's hear from Game Time. And have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family, and maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize that you want to be in the stands? That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. And Game Time makes it all possible. And it makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and lowest prices that takes the worry out of buying. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, so I wanted this to lead into the discussion of a poll that they had over on The Athletic, and it's a way too early season predictions thing where they predict. And then we've done this before. They predict like who's going to win all the awards, who's going to win the Stanley Cup, who's going to be the runner-up, all that stuff. I don't have to go through all of it, but I wanted to get to some of it because I think it paints a picture of where, the media feels the Avalanche are right now. But the first thing I wanted, because we were talking about Jared Bednar and how we just feel like he continues to be disrespected, at least in Avalanche world. They did have a vote on who they feel the first coach fired will be. And tied for fourth place at 4.3% is Jared Bednar. If you're curious, Andrew Burnett for the Nashville Predators is far and away number one at 43.5%. But Bednar is at 4.3, tied with Andre Tourigny of the Utah Mammoth and Chris Knobloch of the Edmonton Oilers. The same Chris Knobloch who took over the Edmonton Oilers 2 seasons ago when they started off the season horribly, took them to the Stanley Cup final, and then took them to the Stanley Cup final again last year. So, God, it's great being a coach. You take a team that's just down and out and you turn them around in season, bring them to a Stanley Cup, and then do it again. Sure, you've lost in the Stanley Cup. Nobody wants that. But you have a coach that's gotten you there twice, and we're going to get rid of him. At least 4.3% of the people want to get rid of him. And the same is true for Jared Bednar. It's a little bit different for Bednar. He's been there a while. Do you have to feel like he is on a hot seat? I don't want to say he's on a hot seat, but I think it's purely tenure. Coaches don't have the staying power that Jared Bednar has. So I think there's a lot of people feeling like he has to produce or he's out. I feel like that's a fair conversation to have. Do I see him being fired like in the middle of the season? No, I think they really should. We talk about disrespect. That's a disrespect thing, in my opinion. If you're going to get rid of Jared Bednar, which, every coach gets hired to get fired. I think he's earned the right to finish a season and then have the conversation after the season is over. I'm the type of guy who backs coaches, and I love when coaches are around for a long period of time, provided they are producing, provided they are winning. Jared Bednar is winning games. He's winning regular seasons. He's won a Stanley Cup lately, hasn't been in the playoffs. I get that. And that's a fair argument. But I also feel like he's proven to you that he can do this, give him a chance to correct things, and not just want to show him the door. The first sign of, maybe the third sign since the Stanley Cup final of a little bit of struggle. I don't do that with coaches. I feel like you hired them for a reason. Give them multiple opportunities to do their job. Some guys have longer leashes than others, and I would give Jared Bednar a long leash. If you don't feel that way, I'm fine. I understand that, and I'm completely fine. We can have that discussion. So it's a different world. And Andre Turnahey on Utah, he's just, I think, a fantastic coach. And if they were to fire him, like, I think that would just be a poor move on Utah's part. I don't get the feeling that they are. I feel like they understand who they have there. So I don't know. They don't say who votes. They just give you the percentages. But Bednar is in there. So if you want even more proof of just a disrespect thing when it comes to Bednar, yes, they put the Jack Adams Award in here as well. And they have 16 coaches on this list, and not one of them is named Jared Bednar. And I've said this a lot. I don't expect Jared Bednar to win the Jack Adams year after year. God knows he should have won it already. But for a guy that's been with one team as long as he has, he's not going to win it anymore unless the Avs just break ungodly records. It's not going to happen. But is half the league better than him? Coaching? Get out of here. Get out of here. It's not true. And to show you it's what team you coach for. The one coach two coaches, I think Cooper's been there longer, and the one coach has been with one team longer than anybody, who just got fired in Mike Sullivan, now is hired by the New York Rangers, has not coached a period, and miraculously he's second on this list at 13. Actually, I'm lying. He's tied for first with Martin St. Louis, which I applaud that one because he's been there for more than 1 year with a team. And I can't believe they have him that high up. But you're telling me now Mike Sullivan is going to be, and Mike Sullivan's a phenomenal coach, but now we're back behind Sullivan simply because he's coaching a new team, where Jared Bednar, probably, you would think, his team could have a better season than the New York Rangers. And Mike Sullivan has a higher percentage of vote, number one, tied with Martin St. Louis. And, oh, by the way, the other guys on this list, Jeff Blashill from Chicago, Marco Sturm at Boston, Rick Tocchet in Philly, Ryan Huska in Calgary. Those guys are better than Jared Bednar. What is going on? We need a CSI investigation into this, because I, for the life of me, do not understand. It's like he doesn't exist. It's like the Avalanche don't exist. And when you get to other things in this poll about where teams are going to finish, who's going to win the Stanley Cup, let me get to that. It's all the way at the top. So Stanley Cup champion, sure, everyone's going back with Florida. Florida and Vegas is everybody's Stanley Cup. Right now, they're final. The Avalanche are on here for a Stanley Cup champion, 4.3%. That is obviously low. They are on there, but they're not expecting miracles out of them. For your runner-up, the Avalanche, 4.3%. That's like the lowest possible percent of making one of these lists. If you're below that, you basically got nothing. So the Avalanche are on there, low as they may be, on the list for Stanley Cup champion and for the runner-up. Thought there was one. So as far as a dark horse contender, they're not on that. Winnipeg is leading that one. And biggest disappointment, the Avs are third at 8.7%, tied with Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Vegas as the biggest disappointment that could come from this year. So none of that, you couple all of these things that they have on here: fired coaches, biggest disappointment, not even listing Bednar above half the coaches in the league as a Jack Adams possibility. Is that what we're in for this year for the Avs? It's tough to say because we would all like to hope that this roster is not the finished product and that bottom six gets figured out. And there's some saying, doesn't matter. I don't care. Even if the bottom six gets figured out. Sure, they have a great top line. They have a great top six. Is that enough? Is that enough to really catapult this team to a deep run and go into a Stanley Cup final? I mean, anything is possible. I'll always hold out hope for that and watching this team. But it's going to be a lot more difficult than it came to that 2022 team. So that's to say that, it can be done. It's not impossible, but it's going to be a grind. That whole thing, that phrase you hear about an NHL season being a grind, it will be a grind for the Avalanche. They can do it, but it will not come easy. And I think the pundits and the media is looking at them as, yeah, they're a good team. They have two of the best players on the planet playing on the same team. They'll score goals. They'll be exciting. They'll win games. But are people backing them and behind them that it's just going to be easy for them to, oh yeah, the Avalanche, they're a contender and they'll be in the Stanley Cup final? I don't think that's happening going into this year. They're not like the favorite. Remember, prior to 2022, for like 3 years in a row, they were the favorites. They were the odds-on favorites going into the season. And again, they're up there. And we did that. We did that when the season ended. Odds go up right away. We threw up the FanDuel odds. They were there. I think they were third or fourth, if I remember, which I thought was high. Things have already changed because that was before free agency. That was before the draft. That was before everything. It's like the 24 hours after the Stanley Cup is awarded, they're throwing out these odds. So it's a little crazy to do that, but it's a fun talking point. And it has changed a lot since then. So I haven't checked. I probably should have, but I wonder where they are now. I'm sure they are still up there, but it's not a runaway anymore that things are just going to come easy to the Avalanche. Maybe that's a good thing. You fight for it and you work for it a little bit harder. But I think from the outsider's perspective, looking in on the Avs, I think they like them. I think they feel like they are a good team, but they know they have a lot of teams to go through to get where they want to go. And that's no secret. And that is also every year that's a regular season in the NHL, is it not? So, all right. Last thing we're going to get to, and that is taking a page from the NFL in a way, from the Locked On NFL sites, and the Avalanche Mount Rushmore. What does it mean for Peter Forsberg going forward? We'll talk about that next. All right, so if you're following Locked On, mostly the Locked On NFL teams over on Twitter, doing a fun thing, and everybody does these Mount Rushmores, and they talked about all the time. We've done them here. I haven't done them in a while because the thing hasn't really changed too much for the Avs over the years. But what they're doing, they're pretty much over for like all the Locked On NFL teams. They had all the hosts come up with their Mount Rushmore. And now they're putting them head to head. They're putting them to a vote, and they're doing it by division. It's basically just like an NCAA bracket. And I think it was the Broncos were up against the Raiders. And I think last time I checked, the Broncos were winning the percentage on that. We're winning the vote. And just for I'm not turning this to Locked On Broncos, please. I'm not Locked On Broncos. I love the Broncos. I've been following them my whole life. The four guys that they put up, I thought were interesting. Sure, they put up Elway. They put up Champ Bailey. They put up Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, I thought was a surprise one, if you ask me. And who was I'm blanking on who the last one was. Steve Atwater. It was Steve Atwater. So it was two defensive guys and two quarterbacks. So Atwater, Bailey, Manning, and Elway. I don't know if I would have put Manning up there. I mean, he's an all-time great player, but I'm a Terrell Davis guy. I'm surprised Terrell Davis wasn't up there. And for me, I'll throw these out there and then we'll get back to the Avs. It's Elway, Terrell Davis, Champ Bailey. And I probably would have put Shannon Sharp up there over Atwater. Although I love Steve Atwater too. So those are their four. Anyway, for the Avalanche, I think that the conversation has always been who's the fourth guy, because it's Waugh, it's Sakic, it's Forsberg, and then have your debate on that fourth guy. And we've done that on this show. I think most people go the Adam Foote route, but there's some other guys that would get thrown out there. And that's the fun debate of this for the Avs, is that fourth spot is left open. But I threw this out to subtext, and I don't know if they're going to have us do this. I genuinely don't know that. If we're doing the same thing that the NFL side is doing, I don't know. But the question I threw out is, we have to, right now it's the fourth spot that everyone is debating over. And in 10 to 15 years from now, when it's all said and done, you would have to think Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon are on that Mount Rushmore. So there's no more question of, the fourth guy. But the question now becomes, does Peter Forsberg get bumped off for MacKinnon and Makar? Which sounds sacrilegious. I mean, Forsberg's my favorite Av of all time. But you have to, and just, this is all making assumptions. This is assuming, Cale Makar stays with the Avalanche for the duration of his career, or 95% of it. And so does Nathan MacKinnon. And the numbers continue to go the way that they go. The awards continue to rack up, and hey, maybe you win another cup or two. But what happens then? Like, do you really push Peter Forsberg off of the Avalanche Mount Rushmore for two guys that are just as deserving? Some people right now is that fourth spot. I said Adam Foote. Some people would already put Makar in there. Some people would already put MacKinnon in there. So you're going to have two guys that are going to be taking over those spots, and the interesting thing, with I know there's some Avalanche fans that appreciate Nathan MacKinnon. And I know Vargar, our boy Vargar, is one of them. He appreciates what Nathan MacKinnon can do. He doesn't like his attitude, and he dings him for stuff like that. I don't think he responded to this question yet, because I'm curious to see what he's got to say. As I'm wondering if he would not put MacKinnon on there. And I don't think you can do that. If Nathan MacKinnon is your franchise leader in points when it's all over with, how do you not put that guy on your Mount Rushmore? And he's on the way to do it. He's got 870 games played, 1,015 points, compared to Joe Sakic's 1,378 games played and 1,641 points. So let's just say he's like 600 plus. Was it 630 or something like that points behind him? So if he stays healthy and he stays with the Avalanche, he's probably going to do that. The number, I think for Sakic, he was 1.19 points per game, while MacKinnon is 1.16 points per game. So he's right there. He's right there. He's right on track to do that. How do you keep him off? If eventually he does do that, he's on there. You have to have, and he's not going to knock Sakic off. We're not going to knock Sakic off and keep Forsberg on there. Sakic is everything to the Avs. Waugh is the greatest goalie who ever lived. Those two guys are as stone as a Mount Rushmore can be. And if MacKinnon does break that franchise points record, he's on there. And Cale Makar could retire today, and I think a lot of people would already put him on there. And if he just continues to do what he's doing, he's another guy that's on there. So as crazy as it sounds, it's almost like Peter Forsberg, enjoy your time on the Avs Mount Rushmore, because I hate to say it, but there could be a time where he's no longer a part of it. And if we do this, say the Locked On NHL side does this when it's all done, if we do it 15 years from now, Is anybody beating those four guys in a head-to-head vote between Makar, MacKinnon, Sakic, and Waugh? I mean, there's other guys that have, incredible like individual players and stuff like that. And I know even, I'm sure the Oiler fans are probably saying, well, we got Gretzky and Messier, and you could name the guys that you could put on there, but God, that's an incredible four. I threw this out to the subtext crew recently, so I'm just catching up on what they're saying. Ethan says, it's a great question. I have one condition. Nate and Cale need to be Avs for their whole career. While retired here, so he kind of gets a pass, but I want Nate and Cale to be lifelong Avs. Yeah, I would say they need, like I said earlier, like joking, they need to play like 95%. If they go somewhere for their last, like if they do like a reverse Ray Bork, like if the Avs are just for whatever reason not good at the end of their careers and they want to go somewhere else for the last 1 or 2 years of their career, okay, I don't think that takes away from everything they've accomplished before then. I get what you're saying, but I can't make an exception. Like you brought up Waugh, and Waugh played 8 years here, but he won those 2 cups, and it's incredible the numbers that guy has. So I don't want to hold it to 100% every single game has to be in an Avalanche uniform. Would love that, absolutely love that. But if it's something where it's like the last couple of years, it would stink. Be weird to see them in another uniform, but I would understand it. Lisa says it's tough, but I feel like he does, saying that Forsberg gets pushed off. Carr's a generational talent, so he has to go on. I feel like MacKinnon edges Forsberg out. If for no other reason, then he'll be an Av for his entire career. Well, and that's true, with Forsberg not being a career Av, it's tough to hold MacKinnon and Makar to that standard when 2 of those 3 guys between Waugh and Forsberg were not lifelong Avs. So Mayor Charles says, no way. They can't ever take him out. Just make it a Mount Rushmore plus. Cannot do that, Mayor. I know you're the mayor, but you cannot come up with new laws on just unpacking Mount Rushmore. You can't just add more faces because we have a plethora of incredible talent over the years, over the 30 short years of Avalanche Nation. We have a gluttony of guys to choose from to put on a Mount Rushmore. We can't chisel more faces into it. Love the idea, but we have to follow the rules, and the rules are 4. I'm so sorry, Mayor. I have to override you. I have to veto the mayor. Brandon says it's very close, but I think Forsberg is in over Makar. Right now, maybe. But over the course of Makar's career, that's what we're talking about, Brandon. I don't know if you're meaning that, but I don't think there's any way that Forsberg stays on over Makar if things keep going the way they're going for Cale Makar. We got a few more here. We got Madam Battleaxe says, nope. I'm so sorry, but I just can't. Forsberg will always be there. Sorry. I know Makar and MacKinnon are just amazing, but we need to have a mini Rushmore. Again, we can't. I know it's a maybe a good problem to have, having all of these incredible all-stars, but we can't do that. We can't make up new rules just for the Avalanche. Joe said that's the exact conversation I had started at lunch today. Excuse me, with his boss. And he says yes. So he says that Forsberg gets pushed off. Kay says he probably will be, and the Avs need 6. That's true. I agree. But as you have heard, cannot do that. And Coy says probably when it's all said and done, yes. They have to at least get one more cup with the Avs, though. That is a good point. How much do cups come into play? I think they come into play somewhat, but I just feel like the numbers also come into play, and the numbers are going to be nuts for Makar and MacKinnon when it's all said and done. And they do have at least one. If they had none, maybe it's a different conversation, but they have at least one One is difficult to get. If you get two, I mean, if you get two and the numbers go the way that they're going, there's just no way. And who would have thought that we'd ever be pushing someone like Peter Forsberg off of Mount Rushmore? And just imagine, and I hate to end on a downer, and just imagine if Mikko Rantanen hung around. It's funny how lucky we've been as Avalanche fans, like watching all the talent that's been here in just 30 years. And we're having the conversation. We're having the conversation a lot of other teams can't have when it comes to their Mount Rushmores. Excuse me. So again, I don't know if we're doing this a little bit later in the off season. If we are, you know what it's going to be for the Avs, but it'll come down to the voting. So if we do it, I will absolutely obviously be talking about it on here. And when it happens, go vote for it. You got to show up in big numbers, Avs Nation, and I expect you to. So we'll see. We'll see if that happens. But it's a fun debate. So fire away in the comments section. All right, it's going to be it for today. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, making this your first listen of the day. We'll be back on Friday. And if anything else is going on in Avalanche land, we will be talking about that then. So once again, thank you, everybody, for tuning in, making this your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. I'm Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys on Friday, where you will have made it through 48 hours, where you're that much closer to Sidney Crosby being with the Colorado Avalanche, and he'll never be on Avalanche Mount Rushmore.